AZARJEW, who's the community coordinator for Charity Water, and I just wanted to thank you for taking a couple minutes to the interview.
Yeah, I'm so excited you're here, and thanks for having me.
Okay, so as I've been getting more and more interested in charities, I've been learning more about how to pick a charity to support, and I want to talk a little bit about how Charity Water does and a few of the top factors I looked at, and why I picked Charity Water as my product for Awesome Charity this year. So the first thing you read a lot about is the percentage of money that goes into the charity work versus operations costs. Can you talk a little bit about how Charity Water deals with that metric?
Yeah, so at Charity Water we have a really unique model, 100% model, which means we have a group of amazing private donors who provide all of our operational costs. Because of their generosity, because of that generosity, we're able to send 100% of all public donations to go fund clean water projects, which is incredible, and it's a pretty rare model that you see. For us, it was really important because when we look at the statistic that half of Americans don't trust charities, a lot of that comes from they don't know exactly, they're like, what percentage goes towards operations, what percentage goes towards funding clean water or funding the project that we want to support. And for us, we made it really easy with this idea of operations and funding clean water projects.
Yeah, you really can't do much better than 100% going into the field,
Yeah.
and it's definitely really good to know when you donate to this charity, all of the money is going to actually working in the field. So I read a great article online saying that the percentage of money used in the field might not be a good metric. It's just easy to calculate and understand, and people like easy. A better way to measure a charity might be how much impact they have in the field, but that's really hard to measure. But Charity Water is doing something really interesting to show their impact using a virtual reality experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so you got to see it earlier, which I was really excited about. For us, yeah, showing impact is super important. So we do that through a lot of different ways. We actually do reporting on every project that we'll send to supporters. You can see all of our completed projects online. And so showing impact's always been a really, really important part of our work over the last 10 years. But virtual reality was a really exciting experience for us to take people to the field without actually taking them to the field. Because storytelling is such an important part of who we are, we knew that virtual reality would be a super compelling medium to tell a story. So for us, it's a great way to A, educate people about the global water crisis, and B, show them that there's a solution and they can be a part of it, and how that impact, what impact that plays on the communities that we work in. We've been using it as a really great tool for the past. We shot it in May of 2015, and then we completed it at the end of 2015, and we've been using it all year to share with people the work that we do. And actually in August, we shared it with over 12,000 people here in Lower Manhattan over a 3-week activation at Brookfield Place. And so it's really cool to see how people who maybe have never interacted or have learned about the global water crisis have that first experience through VR, and when they would take the headset off, they would just be amazed because they had no idea what was going on, and they felt really compelled to act. Yeah. So I think that's the power of virtual reality. People feel like they're there, which is insane.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a great thing. I actually got to experience it. And it was really touching, like actually being there while it was happening, because you can read about it on the website, but there's still that disconnect that you're reading words about what happened, but you're not actually there. And like, you can imagine being there all you want, but the virtual reality experience actually lets you like be there, and it does a really cool thing where you're kind of like watching an interaction between people from kind of far away, and suddenly you're right there and the well's being installed and you see all the hammers, and it's really cool, and it does give you like this little shock thing, but it's not like in a bad way. It's really great to sort of see that like the life was kind of slow and everything's happening bang, bang, bang. All of this is happening, and now everything is the way it is now.
When people would watch it, they would celebrate with the community at the end. You would see kids and like they'd just lift their hands up and they'd start dancing with them, which I think is really, I love that so much.
Yeah. So another factor I've been studying lately has to do with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where at the bottom we need food and water and shelter to live. And then we can think about safety, then love and belonging, and then higher levels of thought. Obviously, Charity Water is focused on people who are level 1 and helping them get to level 2. Do you think it's important to address people's basic needs first and help them move up to higher levels where they're more able to reach their potential?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we've seen in a lot of the stories that you can read online about communities that we work in are just about that. The fact that when we give a community access to clean water, the impact is enormous. And here at Charity Water, we say water changes everything. We believe that, we've seen it firsthand. So when, you know, not only are people healthier because they have access to clean water, but they get a lot of time back, because what people may not realize is the walk to water can be far. I think the statistic is 40 billion hours are spent walking for water on the continent of Africa alone each year, just each year. And so when you think about that, they're spending so much time, hours walking for water, and they're collecting water that's dirty, that makes them sick, and they're not even collecting enough water that they need for the day. And so when we think about that, and we think about them having closer access points and having clean water so they're healthier, they have more time. We hear a lot of stories about girls being able to go to school every day. We hear stories about individuals starting their own businesses because they have the time and they're healthy and they have the capacity to think beyond these basics, like needs that they have, because we're helping provide that for them. So I think when you see when a community gets access to clean water, it really does open up a lot of opportunity for them.
Yeah, definitely. There's several stories on the website about people who have started businesses and have started working, and one story is about someone, she made bread, but she just made enough to kind of support her family. But then there was a well installed in her village, and she had enough water so that she had, because earlier she had to deal with, is she going to drink the water, is she going to give the water to her kids, is she going to use the water to wash her kids' uniforms so they can go to school. But now she can do all of those things and still have plenty of water left over to bake bread. And it was kind of talked about how her bread is really delicious, and now she's thinking about like getting a better house, getting a better education for her kids, and using her money on things other than getting enough like food to survive. And that one of my favorites. It's a really touching story. There'll probably be a link in the description to where you can read that one, because I really like that one, and I'm going to talk about it a lot.
Can I share another story too that I just remembered? So there's a really compelling story about a woman named Helen. She's from Uganda. I believe she's from Uganda. And her story is really interesting because she's a mother and a wife, and so she would have enough water to feed and bathe her children and feed and bathe, like, for their family to have, but at the end of the day she would go without, so her family would have enough water. And when she got access to clean water, she was able to wash her face, and she washed her face and she was like, now I feel beautiful. And so just that idea of like restoring dignity too, and being able to, you know, the fact that she went without just so that her family could have, and the simple thing, just washing your face, which we do every single day, restored her dignity so much. So that idea too, it's not just giving opportunity, but it's really changing their mentality and their lifestyle.
I actually really loved that one too. I was talking about it when we were prepping for this interview. Because there's just so many ways that people, as it says, water changes everything. There's so many ways, and you were talking earlier about how it even changes family life. People get along better because of clean water, and it just changes life in so many different ways. It's very impactful. Well, my favorite history teacher, John Green, actually, well, the first episode was on the agricultural revolution, the first episode of Crash Course World History. And the same thing kind of happened at the agricultural revolution. That's really hard to say. Because people, all they were thinking about is getting enough food for themselves to eat, and for, if they had young children, for them to eat. That's all they were thinking about. But once they had surpluses of food and like farmers to make food for them, they had time to make things like philosophy and science, and be able to have written records of what they learned and stuff like that. And that's why the world is like this today, because if it wasn't, then we'd just be thinking about making sure that we're still alive. But then people figured out you can plant things, we can stay here, and our food, we have food, so we have free time to like build cities and think about science and stuff like that. So we're basically having another mini agricultural revolution right now, and not many people really think about it, or even like aware that people are aware it exists, but they don't think about it that much. But this could be, but there could be so much more scientists. In fact, the well doctor, which is another one of my favorite stories, is someone got a well in their village, and they were so inspired by that they learned how to fix the wells themselves. And they go around and they help fix wells when they break down. And like that person is now an engineer, and their science wouldn't have been contributed to the world if a well hadn't been built in their city. So there's just so much potential that these people have that is unlocked by clean water.
Totally, and when the story that you heard earlier of Salam in the virtual reality film that you watched, you know, she was only able to go to school 3 days a week because she has to take care of her siblings, and she has to walk for water every morning. But now that she has a closer water point, she's actually in school every single day because she has the time to do it, and she's healthier. Yeah. And so even just education, to educate themselves, or to get education, is such a big part of that, and having clean water helps with that too. Yeah. So even just starting small, I don't know, it's just really interesting that having clean water plays a big role in that.
Yeah, it just plays such a big role in people's life. So what other things do you consider important when people are evaluating a charity support?
Yeah, so when we think about charity water, we have these 3 pillars that we think kind of set us apart from other organizations or like traditional organizations. The first one's the 100% model, which we talked about. Another one is transparency and just proving the work that we do. So we talked a little bit about that too. I think it's really powerful for people to see their impact and to know exactly what their donations are going to. The third thing that I really love about our work is we work with local partners on the ground. And so that was really important to us. We are not experts in how to build a well. We're storytellers, and we can inspire people and educate people to get involved and to fundraise. And so what we do is, that's what we do that, and then we work with local partners on the ground who work in the communities, and they do everything from investigating the sites to figuring out what is the most sustainable solution. So wells are actually not the only solution that we provide. We provide a myriad of solutions. For instance, in Cambodia, we'll do biosand filters because they have plenty of water, but the water is contaminated. So we'll give each household will make their own biosand filter that they'll have to filter out the water so it's clean.
I read about one of those. There's a story, and like the kids said they were talking to like a little kid about what happened, and they were kind of saying that the sand helps clean. The sand eats the bad stuff and cleans the water.
Yeah.
And now they have fresh water.
I'll send you more information about that because the biosand filters are actually really cool. Cambodia, where we work, they have like their own. They make their own sand. This one company in Cambodia, and it's like the perfect like size sand. Anyways, I'll send it to you. It's really cool. Yeah, but when you think about that, like our partners are thinking through all of those things. They actually, not only do they do that, but they work with the community. So every community will set up a water committee. And so that every community has ownership over this water point, and that they'll maintain it and take care of it. And so that we're going in and we're working with the communities directly so that they don't, so that they feel like they have ownership over it, if that makes sense. So our partners are super integral to all of our work, and I think that's a really, really special part of Charity Water.
And kind of while we're talking a little bit about different solutions, there's also one of the other solutions is like a lot of people have close water that's fresh and clean. Mm-hmm. They just can't get to it because it's like up a mountain or something. Mm-hmm. In the story, I remember what it's called. It's called the Lucky School. They had water that they were like in the mountains. I don't remember where, but they actually had their water. Whoa, something right there. They had water come through like a gutter, and then they had clean water. Like there was a little pond of water nearby the school that they had to go and they had to collect, mm-hmm. but it was still a bit polluted because it was from a cave. Yeah. And animals still like mm-hmm. lived in a cave. But then they had a much fresher water source. But all they had to do was like transport it down. Yeah. It was really hard to get to.
Yep.
So it's another solution.
Totally. Yeah. So we did that in Rwanda. We did these huge pipe systems where it used gravity to feed water through these pipes to tap stands. Yeah. And so we're always thinking about different like solutions like that because it depends on where they're located geographically. Like in Ethiopia, we do a lot of wells because we dig into the water table. In Cambodia, we do biosand filters. In Rwanda, we do pipe systems. Like it just totally depends on where the community is located.
I read an article on the Charity Water blog about having a staff trip. So even if you don't work on the wells, you still actually get to go out and see everyone and see what happened on the staff trip. Have you ever been able to make one of those staff trips?
Yeah, so I actually got to go in January of 2015, which was awesome, and I love it. So we have a team here, a water programs team, and they spend about 30% of their time in the field working directly with their local partners. Our creative team also, they do a lot of trips. But my job is really working with our supporters and our volunteers and students. And so I get to travel around the country, but I don't get to travel to the field often. And so Charity Water thought it was really important for staff to be able to do that. In fact, I remember talking to one of the engineers who went on the first trip, and he told me, because he's like coding all day, and he told me that going on the trip really affirmed like his job, because it's really removed, right? He's like coding stuff for a website, and then he goes to Ethiopia, and it's like super eye-opening. But it was one of my favorite trips. We got to visit communities that didn't have access to clean water, and to see their water sources were really like super sobering. To see kids playing in like barely a puddle, like very shallow, and it's very hot there, and the stream is barely moving, and so there's just stuff growing in it, and he's right next to like, you know, cattle feces, and he's just playing and drinking and like bathing in it, and that was really, really intense to see. And you can actually see like the communities, like the kids had like eye infections pretty much, but they were super welcoming. There were so many people like throwing popcorn and singing and dancing when we arrived. And then after we saw their water point, they took us to their schoolhouse and fed us bread and honey and traditional Ethiopian coffee, which is so good. And so being able to see their community and see how generous they are was super awesome. They have clean water now, so they were getting clean water in a couple of weeks. So we got to see that. We went to a school. Actually, you would probably really be excited to go to one of the schools, because we went to their science room, and they had because they don't have electricity really, and all of their school they had like all of these really cool paintings of animals, and then they had these huge like diagrams of the solar system, which I think you'd probably be really into. So that was really cool to see. But they've had clean water for a few years, and we played them in soccer, and they totally killed us. But being able to see that was really neat, and to see that kids are being able to go to school to learn those things, I think was super compelling. And we also got to see a drill hit water, which we loved, and we got to dance with the community and celebrate. And that actually is a really epic thing to see, because these communities are super remote. Like we are off-roading for hours. You know, we spent most of our time in the car traveling to these communities, and they're super, super remote, no electricity. And so to see this huge drill and this terrain like strike water, and there's nothing else around, but there's all of these people celebrating, I think was a super amazing experience. And then also we got to eat a lot of injera, which is the like traditional Ethiopian food, which was super yummy. So it was a good trip.
So while you were on the trip, did you actually meet some people and hear stories that didn't go up on the website? Yeah,
so there are a couple of stories. There's like, I don't know this girl's story, but where we stayed, there was a huge boulder, and every day our staff would go and sit on the boulder to see the sunset, and this girl kept coming back to hang out with us, and she would sit with us, and I would like bring her gum or like a pen or something. But that was just like, I don't know her story, we weren't able to really communicate, but just being able to sit next to her every evening, she would wait for us, and we would just watch the sunset together, was really cool, and actually pretty powerful for some reason to me, just to be able to do that. But I do remember we got to visit this one household, and the woman, and they have clean water, and she actually she makes pottery, so that was really cool to see. So she digs the clay, she makes the pottery. We actually got to buy pottery from her, so I have some at home, which is really neat. And her process, so she sells it in the community, but her process is she digs a hole, she puts cow dung on it, starts a fire, puts the clay in there, and then lets it sit, and then like covers it and lets it sit for days. And so just to see how laborious that is, and how much time that takes, and that if she didn't have access to clean water, that wouldn't be possible for her, because everything just takes so much time there, which that was kind of neat to see, and just to be able to really experience just what their day-to-day looks like, I think was pretty cool. Oh, one more story. I'm so sorry. We got to do a water walk too. So we'll have you carry a jerry can free leave, but to do it in Ethiopia, the terrain, it's like desert. There are these huge rocks. It's kind of hard to walk on. And we collected the water, and this little girl, she's probably your age and your size. That's her job. She carries the jerry can to her community, and we did the walk, and like none of us, we had to take turns because it was so heavy and so hard to do, and she's just like zooming past us, like so strong. Yeah. So that was kind of embarrassing, but also really like, wow, this is the reality for her every day.
Yeah, that definitely sounds. I probably couldn't do that. I used to do like martial arts, and now I'm just like, and then I'm like, I can't open doors. Yeah. So we were kind of laughing when we were preparing for this interview and this visit that Charity Water is maybe the best named charity you've ever heard of. Because like anything else you say about it is just redundant and wasted words. Because if I said, we're gonna go do an interview with Charity Water, and someone said, well, what's that? I'm like, well, it's a charity and it deals with water. And I was like, yeah. Yeah. It's like one of the perfectly named charities.
Yeah. Yeah, we like that though. We want it to be really clear and simple for people. We want people to know exactly what they're giving to, and we want to make it easy. So I think that's where the name comes from, Charity Water. And I think if you look at a lot of our media and the way that we communicate, our tone's like very straightforward. Like, this is who we are, this is the work that we're doing, and we want you to be a part of it. And so I think that's kind of where the name comes from.
Since you guys have the VR app, did you come up with that like on the staff trip because you were there, and I assume you want everyone to be able to experience that at some point? Where did you come up with that, and is it at all based on the staff trip?
Yeah, no, I don't know that's like based particularly on the staff trips. We do a couple of trips every year, but that is the idea, that we want to take people to the field without actually buying them a plane ticket and taking them to the field, because that's a lot of work. But yeah, totally, we want people to feel like they can go there and have the same experience that our staff have when they go to the field. So absolutely, and really to just like, I don't know, like you said, it feels like you're there when they're building the well, or when they're drilling for the well, they're like pulling the pipes out. You feel like you're helping them pull the pipes out. Sometimes I feel like it's like going straight through my head. I'm like, what's happening?
But I feel kind of like I should be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you like want to move out of the way. Yeah, totally. And I think that's like powerful, right? Like, it's so crazy to be able, because when I was there, I didn't even get that close, and so to be able to see that, I think is super powerful, and it comes from that idea of wanting to take people there.
Yeah, because you're definitely, as I was talking about earlier, you want to show your donors how much impact you're having on, and you're showing them this with an individual story in virtual reality, and that's definitely a really good way to show this. By the way, link in the doobly-doo to where you can check out the YouTube version and the VR version of what the VR experience that I just had, because that was really cool, and I highly recommend you guys check it out if you're thinking about donating to a charity. Yeah, I definitely want to go on a staff trip too, to see all of these amazing things. It seems like such an excellent time.
We'll just stuff you in the suitcase and take you with us.
So how can people learn more about Charity Water?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website's a great resource, www.charitywater.org. And there you can learn more about our work, about our partners, the communities that we work in. You can actually see all of our completed projects on Google Earth there, which is actually pretty cool. So that's where you can learn more, but there are lots of ways to get involved. So we're super excited about the spring, which is our new monthly giving community. And that's something that we just launched this year, and it's a really cool experience for our community to impact lives monthly and to get reporting monthly on what their donations are going to. And then another one of my favorite ways I think people can get involved is by going to my.charitywater.org. That's our online giving platform. So fundraising platform, sorry. Our online fundraising platform. But that wall that you saw earlier, people doing a lot of crazy things, they use that platform to do it. And there's, Charity Water kind of started with Scott giving up his birthday, and so that's been a really popular thing of people giving up their birthdays. Or there's this one supporter named Bridger who's been giving up his Christmas for 7 years. Instead of getting presents, he asks for donations for charity water.
Wow.
And that's a really powerful platform because you can invite your community to give and to learn about what you're doing, and you can also have a lot of fun with it. And all those folks will get reporting too.
Yeah. Well, I heard you had a meeting, so thank you for taking a couple minutes to be interviewed.
Of course, thank you. I've had so much fun today. It's been great.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
They're like